Hello everybody and welcome back. And the party are here and they have spent the night in this iron ring camp where they have released some slaves. They freed about 15-20 human slaves. There were some goblin slaves and we let the humans get justice. Then the slaves, they took the horses and they were escorted all the way back to the human settlements with Loshad keeping an eye on them. We went through everything and we looted the corpses. We found, in terms of raw gold and various trinkets, we found about 2,000 worth, which is quite a lot. And we also found another staff, which looks exactly like Donard's staff of healing, and it is indeed another staff of healing. So we're back up again to 2 staffs of healing. If this becomes a bit OP, we might accidentally lose one of them. I did say at the end of last time that I would roll for any encounters to see if anything wanders in here during the night. And that is a no. What about the next day? And that is also no. So we're going to wake up on Saturday the 6th of Yarthmont. It's lightly cloudy, it's dry, it's cool and it's breezy. And we're going to leave this camp behind. Not only that, but we will also going to leave this map behind as well as we make it from here off the edge. This map is an enlargement of this area here. And it served us really well because when you look at the original, it does seem quite small in comparison. But we are here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The middle of the day will take us here, and we have an encounter. The party stops on the road. The road itself is a strip of hard-worn earth that ran fairly straight east to west. It had been trampled into existence by years of use rather than being constructed with intent. On either side lies the undulating grassland of the Kelvin Plains. It is a clear, warm, windy day, and the hills rise to the north, and beyond, the Black Peak Mountains can be seen as a pale mirage. Sylvia's hair blows around her face, and she has to push it back and tuck it behind her ears. She might look for a bit of string to tap back. The party has stopped because, ahead on the road, they see a long dark moving line, and it is coming their way. Soon they can hear the plodding thump of countless horses' hooves, the groaning creak of wooden wheels, and the jingle of bridles and harnesses. It is a merchant's caravan train. Sylvia's sharp eyes can make it out before the others can. It is a line of wagons and carts, a hodgepodge of shapes and sizes, but they all move forward with the same steady pace, a slow speed that is dictated by the sheer burden of their goods and wares. Moving amongst the wagons is a great number of men on horses, armoured men with swords at their sides and bows at their backs. 4 of them break away and gallop towards the party. They stop their horses several feet away. One raises his hand. "State your business on the road," he says abruptly but not aggressively. "Who wants to know?" asks the cleric. It's a fair question, but Donard always can make it sound unreasonable. "We're traders from Sakuskin," says Stephen. "You can see our horses here. We're selling them to the elves in Refillion." The guards cast their eyes over the 14 white horses. Without a nod or acknowledgement, they turn their horses and gallop back to the caravan. Stephen turns to the others. "It pays to be polite out here. We will need friends." "I was being polite," says Donard, confused. He looks to the others to back him up. "You were," says Liz, "in your own special way." "What should we do?" asks Sylvia. "Well, it would be a good time to stop and have a midday meal," says Stephen. "I have a feeling we will have guests." "That's a trader's caravan," says Malin, thinking this through. "We never had caravans like that. Visit Threshold." Liz snorts in agreement. "We'd be lucky to get a couple of carts selling sackcloth." "It has likely come from Specularum and has gone through Kelvin," says Stephen. "We can ask where they're going, but yes, they probably will not trouble Threshold." The party leaves the road and dismounts. The horses instinctively start eating the grass. Everyone gets out some rations and Carrick tries to find wood to light a fire. There are no trees, but several barren, thorny bushes will have to do the job. And sure enough, the head wagon of the caravan reaches them and stops. It is a large, brightly covered wagon that looks like a small house on wheels. The man holding the reins is old and skinny, with thin grey hair and pale watery eyes. However, it is the man sitting beside him who is clearly the leader. He is a much larger person in all three dimensions. He wears a fine satin robe with gold embroidery. The merchant gives an order to the guards, who then trot back along the caravan, telling everyone to stop. He then gives the party a broad smile and a nod, but Sylvia sees an eyebrow raise, revealing a flash of curiosity. "I'm interrupting your midday meal," says the merchant with jovial bluster. "A splendid idea, and a wonderful spot to rest as well. You don't mind if I join you?" His skinny helper fetches some steps and places them beside the wagon so his master can dismount with ease. Introductions are formally made, and the merchant gives his name as Aetos. His servant scurries to and from the wagon, fetching a finely carved stool, a small table, and then a fine lunch of cold chicken and vegetables. Liz looks at it enviously. While that is going on, Aetos moves through the white horses, appraising them. "These are for sale?" he states as a question. "They have a customer already," replies Stephen. "I could offer you 75 gold for each. Right here," says the merchant. "Save you the journey to Refillion." "This is a poor offer." "I always honour a deal," says Stephen. "As you know, one's good name is as valuable as gold." "Indeed, indeed," laughs the merchant. "A trader after my own heart, but you can't hold it against me for trying." He sits at his little table and begins eating. He has questions to ask the party, but he doesn't want to be the one to do the asking. Since answers and information cost money, he wants to be the one to trade in those. So he gives the party a very long and obvious curious stare. Malin takes the bait and asks, "What's that look for?" "I couldn't help myself," says the merchant, "and for good reason." "What reason?" Malin asks. "Now that is worth a pretty coin," says the merchant. "Probably the price of your safety." "What do you mean?" Sylvia gasps. But the merchant ignores her and attends to his chicken. Stephen sighs. "Fine, how much gold?" 90, replies the merchant. 90, Stephen exclaims. "For a few words? Here's 45. The merchant takes one look at Stephen and says, "Well, one trader to another, I'll make it 70. Stephen gives him the money, and the merchant begins. "We have come from Kelvin, a fine town as I'm sure you know. Business was good, and there are plenty of taverns to visit to drum up trade. The only good thing about this wretched job. Do you know the Three Rivers? Excellent establishment." "What of it?" Donard interrupts. "You're rather impatient for a holy man, I must say," the merchant laughs. "Don't you spend days on end in solitary prayer? But anyway, where was I?" "At the Three Rivers," says Malin. "Oh yes. Well, there was this woman there. Not unusual in itself, but she was tall and striking looking, not a face to forget. And she was asking a lot of questions. She was looking to hire some mercenaries. Lots of the patrons put down their drinks and offered to take the job, but she said she was looking for a certain group, and the description she gave matches you lot, as far as her description went. Now what do you think of that?" "What did she want the mercenaries for?" asks Carrick. She never said," replies Aetos, with a mouth full of chicken. "Was she alone?" "And now that is the curious part," says Aetos, enjoying his gossip. "No." "Who was with her?" asks Malin, continuing to make sure that it was the party, always asking the questions. "I should say it was one of those who dabbles in magic. He had the look about his eyes, like one who has an interest in things best left alone. A look you're developing, young man. And of course he was wearing the outlandish garb of that sort. A yellow robe, I ask you." Golthar was wearing a yellow robe. The merchant is pleased at the party's gasp. Then he changes the subject to the latest gossip. The Duke's very own daughter has run off with his captain of the guard. He turns to his own guards. "No doubt you would like to do the same. This bunch have no loyalty to me, no matter how well I pay them, but they are, sadly these days, much needed. There are bandits between Kelvin and Threshold. Attacks are increasing. Some wagons have disappeared. I'd watch yourself if that is your road." The merchant clams up. and concentrates on eating. The show is over. It will take some time for the caravan to get moving, so the party take the opportunity to walk amongst the wagons and see what's on sale. Carrick buys himself a new tinderbox, Donard buys some flasks of oil, Liz buys a brightly coloured scarf to tie around her neck. She doesn't need it, but she needs to spend money to feel better. Malin finds a wagon laden with crates and chests filled with scrolls and books. The owner is a lean man with a hacking cough. He is smoking a pipe. Under the smell of the tobacco smoke, Malin gets a waft of a familiar odour, black cap mushroom. His back is suddenly covered in a cold sweat, and he almost blurts out to the merchant to let him have some, but he resists. Instead, he pulls out the amulet they found in Golthar's room. He asks if there is a book that might tell him what it might do. The merchant pulls his pipe out. He watches Malin's eyes, lingering that bit too long on it. 10 gold, he says. He rummages around his wares and pulls out a book called Amulets of Mystara. On one page is a picture that matches Malin's amulet. It is, according to the book, one that protects the mind against ASP and crystal balls and the like. Eventually, the sound of the caravan starts up again. The metal jingle of the bridles, the snorting of the horses, the creaking of some very strong wheels. They are on their way to Salonika. "Where's that?" asks Liz, already convinced it must be more dynamic than Threshold. "To the north," says Carrick, "not too far from my own people." The party have to gather their own horses before they can continue westward. By the time they are ready to set off, the caravan has passed, and it is already heading eastward with the evening sun on its back. So the party have just said goodbye to the merchant's caravan. And, well, strictly speaking, the road from Kelvin to Salonika is this one. We met them about here. They took a slight diversion, maybe to avoid bandits. But we eventually, in the evening, make it to the Gnomes Ferry point. And there is even a little map of it here. Now we're given some details about these gnomes. The ferry point is run by 5 gnomes, and it gives the usual combat details should you be so inclined as to fight them. They run a hostelry, which is good for us because it's coming into the evening. We will take rooms here, and we're told they enjoy a good haggle, so we'll sort that bit out first. When you look at the prices of everything, it's 10 gold pieces per horse. We have 14 horses, plus our own 6, that's 20. That's already 200 gold pieces. And then on top of that, it's 5 gold pieces for each of us. That's another 30, another 120 for the beds, another 200 to stable the horses, and another 90 just for food. Now, altogether, it comes to about 550 gold pieces. There is a bargaining system in this version of the game, and it looks like this. What happens is you work out the price, which is given in the book, and that is called the base price. And then when it comes to bargaining, you double it. So that 550 becomes 1,100 gold pieces, which seems an awful lot to stay for one night. Okay, so the first person to speak up and say, "What? Who do you think we are?" is Donard. Now we easily have the gold. We might even have to offer some of the jewellery that we've found to make up for it, but all of that is considered legal tender in this part of the world. So after Donard complains about the price, he turns round to the others and huddles them together. He then says to Sylvia, "Listen, people seem to like you. Can you ask for a lower price?" Now Sylvia is not really that keen on that because bargaining is kind of confrontational. You know, you have to have a bit of front, a bit of assertiveness, and she would really just rather pay the money. So Donard looks at her and shrugs and says, "Okay then, well, would you rather I did the bargaining?" And, well, the answer to that is no. So Sylvia says, "Okay, I'll do it." So she goes to the gnomes and says, "We don't have that kind of money. Can you do us a bit of a deal?" And the gnomes look at her and say, "Well, for such a pretty lady, we can give you a bit off." And they offer her actually quite a discount. Now they offer her 120% instead of the 200%. So 20% of 550 is 110. So they offer 660 altogether. That still seems like an awful lot of money. Even though they have a bargaining table here, The amount of gold this game has given us and the amount of gold we have given away, bargaining over these small prices is really just a bit of role playing. But eventually, with a bit of haggling, we get them down to 660, and they set us up with rooms for the night and our evening meal. Now, one other thing does happen when we're sitting and eating is that somebody comes in to the inn and they are clearly armoured with a cloak, sword and a shield. And through the window we can see there are 7 other guys hanging outside. They could be mercenaries about their own business. They could also be bandits. They could be the Iron Ring. We don't know. But one thing that happens is the guy who comes into the inn is looking for rooms and he looks around. He sees us lot and then he says to the gnomes, "Ah, I see you're full. I'll just make my own way. Thanks very much." And he leaves. What do we make of that? Are we going to run after them on the grounds that they must be up to something? Or do we think this guy's just passing by and legitimately looking for a room? Or the other alternative is, have we even really bothered to notice them? I mean, some of us are eating our dinner. Right, so we have 3 options. The 3 options are, we're eating and we don't notice them. That's a roll of 1 to 2. The other option is that we glance up and see them. We don't really think they have bad intentions. This is an inn and people do travel. That's 3 to 4. The other option is that we do think these are the bad guys. We do put down our knives and forks and we do follow them outside and ask them what's going on. That's option 5 to 6. So let's roll a dice for everybody and see which option we go for. Right, okay. Well, it looks that that's Stephen, that's Liz, and that's Donard. They were busy eating and didn't notice. That's Sylvia, who doesn't think anything of these people. That's Malin and Carrick, and both of them want to follow. Okay, Malin and Carrick are going to mention that those guys look like they're up to something. So can they persuade other people to change their mind? Liz thinks I'll just let them go. Stephen doesn't look up, he still continues to eat, and Donard says, "Yeah, I think you're right, we'll follow them." Okay, so the party is split. 2 people don't want to follow, 1 person still hasn't noticed, and 3 people do want to follow. We'll roll for Stephen, Liz and Sylvia to see if they change their minds. And they don't. Sylvia, who had no interest in following them, goes back to eating. Stephen is still eating and hasn't bothered to look up, and Liz just says, "I'll leave them." We don't have a decision on that, so we're going to let these people go. Donard is looking out the window and Stephen has his back to the window. Donard glares at Stephen, who hasn't taken his face out of his food yet. You can kind of understand this. Stephen did spend a couple of months being tortured and probably starved. The others he can't fathom. As he looks out the window, he can see the man that came into the inn is getting back onto his horse. There are 7 other guys in the courtyard and they seem to be pointing towards the inn and miming having a drink. They clearly want to stay the night, but it seems that their leader is just gonna get onto his horse. Donard stands up and says, "That's the Iron Ring. What are we doing?" He then casts Bless upon himself and everybody and storms out. He has a chance to get surprise. If he gets surprise, he gets a free attack. If he doesn't get surprise, he will win initiative. So the horseman is here, and as Donard rushes out of the door, weapon drawn, the horseman points towards his fellows and says, "That's the reason we're not drinking here." Does Donard get a free attack? He doesn't, but he does get initiative. And he's going to use that initiative to cast Striking upon himself. So it's their turn. I'm going to say that 4 of them can dogpile onto him. And 1 hits. for 4 points. And both of those miss. Right, so it's round number 2. And it's going to take the next round before everybody else can get up and follow. And Donard gets initiative. He's going to go for one of them. And he hits. And remember, there's +1 onto that. And he gets 4. So it's 10, 14. Yep, that's number 1 gone. Another one can move up. So he still has 4 onto him. 2 miss. And that one hits for 4 points. He's down to 34. Right, round number 3. And they get initiative. And by this point, everybody else has made it to the door. So we've got Carrick, Stephen, Sylvia and Liz. There's going to be 3 each on Carrick and Donard. I'll do the ones on Donard first. That's 2 misses. They all miss. I'll do the ones. They both miss Carrick. They need a 17. Right, so it's our go. Missiles, it's Liz and Sylvia. Liz, now she gets 1 for short range and 1 for bless onto that. So that's a 9, which hits AC 7. They have a bad AC. 1 plus 3, so that's 4, and so she takes 1 down to 2. Sylvia takes another 1 down to 3. Malin is stuck in the doorway. He can't see anything, so we'll do melee, Donard. That's good enough to hit, and he does a 15 damage. That's another one on him dead. Carrick. Yes. And he's got a bless on him. Yeah, he wipes out another one. So there should be 4 left, and 2 of them are damaged. Right, round number 4. And they get initiative again. So there's 2 on Donard. Right, and he gets hit for 1 point. And the 2 on Carrick miss. We'll do a missile round again. Liz hits and kills this one. Sylvia hits and kills this one. Stephen, who I forgot last round. Oh well, my bad. We'll do Donard first. Yes, he has hit well 3 times. And yep, does another 14 damage. This one's gone. And Carrick, yep, he hits and does max damage. And that's all 7 of them gone. Donard looks over the corpses and we see the tattoos of the manacles. Yep, these were the Iron Ring. He kind of just glares at the others for thinking maybe they could just be ordinary mercenaries. But I mean, they could have been. Just because the answers were right doesn't mean he asked the right question, if you know what I mean. So they all go back inside to finish their meal. And the gnomes say, well, I hope you don't charge for the entertainment. We have enough healing to make sure that Donard is back up to full health. Well, we will wake up the next day. We then set off on the ferry. We'll make the journey finally to Raphilion. Oh, which I've been pronouncing wrong. It's Riflian. There's no middle I. Okay, apologies for that. So we're going to Riflian. So I'll see you all next time.